Rise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, as you may have heard, the prominent self-appointed negotiator who facilitated the release of dozens of captives from armed kidnappers in Nigeria has himself been arrested in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, and repatriated to Nigeria. The Nigerian authorities say Tukur Mamu was seized as he was on his way to Saudi Arabia. The DSS, which is Nigeria's secret police, said in their usually turgid language that Mr. Mamu is in their custody to answer critical questions about ongoing investigations relating to some security matters. There have also been reports that military equipment and foreign currency were found during a search of Mr. Mamu's home. Reports that his family deny, saying the military gear did not belong to him and the foreign currency that was found did not amount to much. Well, for more on this in a moment, we'll be joined by Dr. Adamu, CEO of the West African security firm Beacon Consulting. But first, with me in the studio, the journalist, policy strategist and Arise News analyst, Waziri Adio. Good to see you, Waziri. What's your reaction to Tukur Mamu's arrest?
Well, mixed reactions. Let me start by saying that the situation with the hostages from the Abuja-Kaduna train is very regrettable. They've been there since March, and you can imagine what they'll be going through. Even the people who have been released, you can imagine the kind of trauma that they are going through. So this is something that should not happen to anybody. And as a society, we should do everything that is possible to make sure that those who are still left behind, they can go back to their families in one piece, and that citizens don't have to go through these kind of things again. But having said that, it's difficult to really put a finger, on what is going on, because there are different accounts. There's the account from the state security and our security services, and we have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
At the same time, there's the counter account from the family of Mr. Mamu. So in between that, the truth is somewhere, but what we know is that Mr. Mamu is with the DSS. He was arrested in Cairo, through the Interpol. He was repatriated to Nigeria, and the DSS picked him up. And the allegation is that he has questions to answer. In terms of my sense is that I don't think they will just cook up all these things, but we don't know exactly what they have, and it's difficult to start speculating about security issues. What I would just say is that there are so many things at play here. One is that if the security forces have information about an individual on how to check insecurity, definitely they need to act in the interest of all of us. But at the same time, they have to do that in such an open and fair way that will not amount to trying people in the media, like the family has alleged, or not giving people a chance of fair trial.
Okay, and he is essentially a self-appointed negotiator, isn't he? Would that have made him always suspect with the Nigerian authorities?
Yes.
I mean, if you've got somebody wandering in and out of places where you've got people who are sort of kidnapped, I mean, that would make you a fairly sort of...
Yeah, definitely. But let's look at it this way.
Right.
Two ways to look at it. From the perspective of the people in authority, you are wondering how come this person has access to these people, not to the family now, to the bandits and to the terrorists.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's something that is concerning. But at the same time, we all pray that we don't be in this kind of situation. If you have a family member that is in that kind of situation, you want to do everything to make sure that you get them out. So as the relatives of the victims, they are not so bothered about. So how do you have access to them? And possibly, maybe, how do we know, whether all the money, if money is involved, we'll go to those people, whether you are doing it for a fee and all of that. But the security forces also have because when you are talking about kidnapping, terrorism and all of that, a major component is money. Without money, you take out the oxygen out of this. But if you encourage the continuous flow of money, you kind of embolden that kind of business, and that there will be no end. If people can kidnap people and get the kind of amount of money that we're hearing, and without consequences, why should they stop? So at some point, there has to be a break to make sure that you take out, you stop this business, this lucrative business of seizing people and making money out of it.
That's a very good point. Stay with us, Waziri, because we're going to take a short break and bring in Dr. Kabiru Adamu. You're watching Arise Primetime. Stay with us. We'll have more in a moment. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. I'm Charles Anyegolu, and we are in the murky, secretive world of hostage negotiation in Nigeria, and that's of course in the context of the prominent self-appointed negotiator Tukur Mamu, who was arrested in Cairo and repatriated to Nigeria. The DSS saying, that's Nigeria's secret police saying, Mr. Mamu is in its custody to answer critical questions related to security matters. Well, for more on that, Waziri Adio, of course, a Rise News analyst, is already with me, but I'm happy to say that Dr. Kabiru Adamu, CEO of the West African security firm Beacon Consulting, also joins us now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. I know you're coming from an event where you were speaking, so we appreciate your coming over at a trot, as we say. What do we know about how Mr. Mamu was arrested and repatriated?
Thank you, Charles. The information that is out there indicate that it was communication from the Nigerian authorities to their international, probably through Interpol, and that was what led to his arrest. Prior to that, it appeared there was information from an international foreign ally indicating that he was a person of interest. Based on intercepted communication between him and groups that were considered terrorist in that foreign allies jurisdiction. So it appears that he has been, quote unquote, a person of interest over time, not just to Nigerian authorities, but to that particular country. And it was on that basis that he was arrested.
There have been allegations of payments to him, and I emphasize allegations, from kidnappers, allegations of money laundering, but at this stage, they're nothing more than allegations. What are you hearing about that?
Same thing. I am a trained negotiator. We do offer a crisis management service in the consultancy that I run. And I must say, in our assessment, Tukur Mamu has breached every known principle of negotiation. We had reason in several instances to draw his attention on some of those principles. And so it's not very surprising, for instance, that the government found his style of mediation as suspect. Now, depending on how you look at Tukur Mamu, I think he wears several caps. I was making that joke earlier on. He wears the cap of a journalist. He wears the cap of a scholar, a cleric. He wears the cap of a mediator. Then there is the allegation that he's a collaborator. And then the final one, the fifth one, is that he's a benefactor. Now, depending on what angle you decide to look at him, you could present facts to show that he could be one of any one of the five.
Which is why he's a person of interest, basically, to the DSS. Well, I mean, when you wear that many caps,
exactly,
and you know,
especially when you breach the known principles of a negotiator. So, from that standpoint, it appears there is a ground to suspect whatever his role in that regard. Okay. Now, only a competent court of jurisdiction, of course, will establish whether
in the final analysis. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Waziri Adio, because I need your high-level analysis in just a minute. But let me ask you this question, Dr. Adamu. What about process and propriety in the way he was arrested after having been allowed to leave Nigeria legitimately? Are you comfortable with that?
Definitely not. Even though, to be fair to the state, the SSS, they have indicated that the request or the arrest didn't emanate from them. And so the reason why they did not arrest him before departure, it came from another country. Now, irrespective of what the truth behind that is, they had reason, or they had probable cause, I would say, in the past to have arrested him, but they didn't. Now, I mentioned the several caps that he wears. One of the most, I would say, crucial caps is that of him being a cleric. The location where he operates, which is Kaduna, if he's arrested, we're likely to see a reaction. And in a pre-election year, no government would want to, draw that kind of attention to itself. So that may have explained why they didn't arrest him. But then again, I don't think they've run away from that. Already we're seeing reaction. Like I mentioned, he owns the media platform, a media house. The civil society organizations, the media is going to rise in its support and all that, except if the Nigerian authorities present, like they say, in a cogent manner, the
conclusive evidence
that led to his arrest. And now, so far, we've seen releases from the SSS indicating that they have followed due process. They have a court warrant for which they search his house. They've got a reason for his arrest. So one of the major things that I think we're waiting for is what are they accusing him of? If they're accusing him of complicity in a terrorist case, what are the, for instance, requirements within the Terrorism Prevention Act? How long can they hold him? What is the charge against? So things like that will play out over the coming days.
Very interesting. And while we're mulling that and waiting for that evidence to come forth, let me ask you this, Waziri Adio, because you mentioned this previously at the outset. Is all this about demand and supply? Because as long as the government isn't able to stop kidnapping, people will always patronize self-appointed hostage negotiators like Mr. Mamu, won't they?
You see, both sides, but principally by the demand side, right? If you don't want to be in that situation, you don't want your relatives to be in that situation.
Absolutely.
And as long as people can kidnap people and get away with it, so the major thing is the consequence management. If people do anything that people can do and get away with it, they will do it. So people will say that, oh, this is actually a very easy way of making money now. And all kind of people will be hiding under that. So the major thing to do is to stop people from being kidnapped or people from being in a position to receive a ransom. Because, definitely the money will pass through somewhere. And it's amazing that with technology, with all the things in the financial and banking sector, that people can be exchanging money and people will still do these things and get away with it. So as long as people, it's not just about having a self-appointed or appointed negotiators. The terrorists, the bandits, the kidnappers, sometimes themselves, they reach out to people. Sometimes they don't use intermediaries. And they say, go to this place, drop it there. No, don't go there. Go to this place and all of that. And they do all of that with the advancement in technology that people can do that and get away with it. And the kind of money that you are hearing, and you see, this thing is so prevalent. It's so prevalent. It's not just what is happening with those guys kidnapped on the train. Across the country, in the villages, you go to the villages. People are being kidnapped for sometimes. When they try everything, they just say, okay, bring anything that you have. So as long as people can do that and get away with it, is that impunity that emboldens people and ensures that it's just a cycle that continues. So government needs to break that cycle, because when you say don't pay, if you say you are not going to pay, what is government doing to ensure that your loved ones can come back to you? There are so many places, there are so many WhatsApp groups where people, raise, people raise money. people solicit for money to say,
pay these people off.
But it's not just about raising the money. The fact that that money can be raised and can be delivered successfully
and not
with
traced.
no consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. Not followed
with
through.
No consequences.
Yeah,
so if that continues, you won't see an end to this. It's going to go out of hand.
Yeah, so let me bring you in, Dr. Kabiru Adamu. In spite of all this that we've said, he did manage to facilitate the release of dozens of captives, didn't he? I mean, does that serve in mitigation of whatever it is? Because, I mean, that really is the bottom line, isn't it? People get released, people are desperate, and people want their relatives back. And he delivered.
So there are the other side of the story, that he also interfered with, negotiation processes by the government. In other words, negotiation would be carried out, it would reach an advanced stage, and then he would come in and thwart it.
Muddy the waters,
exactly.
Basically. But those negotiations, were they actually going anywhere?
They were, from this other side of the story. And what that suggests is that he's in it for financial gains, and that's perhaps where this angle of accusation is going. Now, whether that is true or not, again, only a competent court will determine his involvement in all of that. But yes, he has access, and that is absolutely important to any negotiator. He's got the access, that is an indisputable fact. But what did he use that access for? And I think that is where the controversy is at the moment.
But you said he broke the rules. How did he break them? Because you're an official negotiator. He's a self-appointed negotiator. What's the difference there?
Confidentiality,
right,
and some of the other principles that have to do with negotiation. If it's proven, for instance, that he benefited from the ransom money, which is part of the accusation currently against him, and that's another breach of the principle. No matter how deeply involved you are in a negotiation, you can't be seen to be benefiting from the proceeds of that. It's a crime, essentially.
Yes,
and you cannot benefit from the proceeds of that.
Okay, and a final word from you, Waziri. We've got less than a minute. We heard the government saying they will eliminate all terrorism, to quote them, in Nigeria by December this year. Are you heartened by what they've done, the moves they've made so far?
Well, we have to acknowledge the progress. At least we've seen that, things, there's progress on different fronts across the country. Abuja is more, more peaceful. People are more, they have more confidence. They move around, and in some other parts of the country too, in the northeast, in the northwest, in the north central. But setting a deadline of December is like setting themselves up. This thing, there are so many moving parts.
You're treading on shaky
ground. And right. It's good to have confidence. It's good to reassure people. But why set yourself up?
Yeah, okay.
Why don't you, just say that we're
doing the best we can,
and we'll continue to.
Yes, but because that will hold them.
Yes, and you have to ensure that as you push them from here, they are not going elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very important to just keep eye on the ball rather than be celebrating too early. We're
going to have to watch that very closely. Waziri Adio, a Rise News analyst, and of course Dr. Kabiru Adamu, CEO of Beacon Consulting. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. Well, next week, really. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.